My beloved child, what if the person your heart has been quietly waiting for has already made a choice about you, a choice you have not discovered yet? Stay with me for a moment, because there is something about your story that may completely change the way you see your past, your present, and what is coming next. You may have wondered why certain connections never worked, why some people disappeared without giving you the answer you deserved, or why your heart kept returning to the same feeling even when you tried to move forward. But what if those unanswered moments were not the ending? What if they were signs that something was still unfolding behind the scenes? Your soulmate may have already chosen you in their heart, long before they found the courage to reveal it. And the most surprising part is this: you may have already crossed paths with the moment that proved it without realizing what it meant. There is a reason this message found you now. As this unfolds, clarity will come. Your soulmate's choice may not have happened through a dramatic confession or a perfect romantic moment. It may have happened quietly, during a moment when they were alone with their thoughts, remembering your voice, your kindness, your presence, or even one small thing you did that you thought they had forgotten. They may have compared every new connection to the feeling they experienced with you and realized something they could no longer ignore. You were different. Not because you were perfect, but because something about you reached a place inside them that others could not reach. And perhaps that is why the connection felt confusing. One moment there was closeness, and the next there was silence. One moment you felt certain, and the next you questioned everything. But sometimes the deepest decisions are made in silence before they are ever spoken aloud. Something huge is waiting for you, and the revelation may begin with one simple truth: they never completely stopped choosing you. Now listen carefully, because this is where the story becomes even more unexpected. There may have been a moment recently when your soulmate realized that losing the connection with you would mean losing something they could not replace. Maybe they saw something that reminded them of you. Maybe someone mentioned your name. Maybe they returned to an old conversation and suddenly understood the meaning behind words they once overlooked. And in that moment, something shifted. They began asking themselves a question they had avoided for far too long. What if the person I have been looking for was already the person I knew? That question can change everything. Because when someone finally recognizes the value of a connection, they stop looking at it through fear, confusion, or pride. They begin looking at it through truth. Your soulmate may be closer to that realization than you think. There is still something they have not told you, something they have been carrying quietly, and when it finally comes into the open, you may understand why the journey between you had to unfold this way. And here is the part one want you to remember before this chapter ends: do not assume that silence means absence. Sometimes silence is where a decision is being formed. Your soulmate may have already chosen the direction of their heart, but they have not yet shown you the evidence. The next sign may come through an unexpected message, a sudden conversation, an old memory resurfacing, or an opportunity that puts both of you in the same emotional space again. When that moment arrives, pay attention, not because you need to force anything, but because the truth will reveal itself naturally. You have spent enough time wondering whether you were chosen. The deeper question now is whether you are ready to recognize the moment when the choice becomes visible. Stay with this story, because the part you have not heard yet may explain why your soulmate kept their decision hidden for so long, and why the next step could feel completely unexpected. My beloved child, there is something your soulmate has already decided, but the reason you have not seen it yet is because their decision happened quietly. While you were wondering whether they still cared, they may have been having a completely different conversation inside their own heart. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where the hidden part of the story begins. Your soulmate may have reached a point where pretending they do not feel the connection became harder than admitting it. They may have tried to distract themselves, focus on other things, or convince themselves that moving forward was easier. But every time life became quiet, the thought of you returned. And eventually, they understood something they could no longer dismiss: some connections do not disappear simply because people stop talking. Sometimes the silence makes the feeling clearer. This may resonate as we continue, because you may have experienced moments when you suddenly thought of them for no obvious reason. Perhaps that was your heart remembering a connection that was never truly finished. But there is another layer you need to understand. Your soulmate may not have chosen you because everything between you was easy. They may have chosen you because, despite everything, you remained unforgettable. They remember the small details. The way you spoke. The way you reacted when you cared. The moments when you were there without asking for anything in return. Those details may seem ordinary to you, but they can become priceless in someone's memory. And something may have happened recently that made them look back differently. Perhaps they realized that the attention they received from others never gave them the same feeling. Perhaps they discovered that being understood was more valuable than simply being admired. And that realization can create a powerful shift inside a person's heart. Suddenly, the question is no longer, "Can I find someone else?" It becomes, "Why am I still thinking about this person?" That is where their choice begins to become undeniable. Something huge is waiting for you, but it may arrive in a form you never expected. It could be a conversation, a message, an unexpected encounter, or even a simple moment that reveals what they have been unable to say. Now, before we go deeper, if this story is resonating with you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and leave your thoughts in the comments because your experience may be the very thing that helps another person recognize what they have been feeling. And if you want to stay connected to stories like this, subscribe and remain with us, because we are only uncovering the first layer. The biggest revelation is not simply that your soulmate chose you. It is why they made that choice after everything they experienced. Think about that for a moment. They had opportunities to forget. They had reasons to walk away. They had moments when choosing silence would have been easier. Yet something about your connection continued pulling their attention back. That does not automatically mean every detail of the future is already written, but it does mean the emotional impact of your connection may be far deeper than you realized. And when someone finally understands the value of what they almost lost, their next decision can become incredibly meaningful. So listen carefully to what comes next, because this may be the part you have been waiting for. Your soulmate may have already decided that if they get another genuine opportunity with you, they do not want to repeat the same mistakes. They may want to approach you differently this time, with more honesty, more patience, and fewer unanswered questions. The person you remember may not be the person standing before you when this chapter opens again. Something inside them may have changed. They may finally be ready to explain why they pulled away, why they stayed quiet, and why your name continued appearing in their thoughts when they were trying to move forward. And when that truth reaches you, you may suddenly understand why certain doors closed, why certain moments were delayed, and why the connection never completely disappeared. As this unfolds, clarity will come. You do not need to chase the answer. Let the story reveal itself. Because the next part is about the one realization your soulmate had that finally made them understand why, after everything, their heart kept choosing you. My beloved child, there was a moment your soulmate could not explain away anymore. It may have been quiet, ordinary, almost invisible to everyone else, but inside them, something changed. They realized that whenever they imagined their future, there was still a space where your presence appeared naturally. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where the hidden decision becomes even clearer. They may have spent time telling themselves that they had moved on, that the past was simply the past, or that the connection meant less than it once did. But then something reminded them of you, and the emotions returned with surprising strength. Maybe it was a familiar place, a song, a simple phrase, or a memory they thought they had forgotten. And suddenly they understood that forgetting you was never really what their heart wanted. They were simply trying to understand what they felt. This may resonate as we continue, because sometimes the person who appears distant is actually the person having the deepest internal conversation. Your soulmate may have been asking themselves one question again and again: why does this person still matter so much to me? Then came the realization they never expected. They began understanding that choosing someone is not always about perfect timing or having every answer. Sometimes it is about recognizing who makes your heart feel understood. They may have remembered how comfortable they felt around you, how certain moments felt effortless, and how even your silence could communicate something words could not. They may have compared those memories with other experiences and noticed a difference they could no longer ignore. It was not about perfection. It was about connection. And that distinction may have changed everything. Your soulmate may have realized that they were not searching for someone who simply looked right on paper. They were searching for the feeling they experienced with you. That is why their decision may have taken so long. They needed to discover the difference between temporary attention and something that genuinely stayed with them. And when they finally understood that difference, your memory stopped being something they needed to escape and became something they needed to understand. Here is where the emotional part begins. Your soulmate may have regrets about moments when they did not say what they truly felt. They may remember opportunities they allowed to pass because they were uncertain, afraid of making the wrong move, or simply not ready to understand what was happening between you. But regret can also become clarity. Sometimes a person only recognizes the value of a moment after realizing they cannot recreate it somewhere else. They may now be thinking about what they would say if they had another opportunity. They may be imagining how different things could have been if they had been more honest earlier. And that is why their next move may not look dramatic at first. It may begin with something simple, a question, a message, an attempt to reconnect, or a conversation that seems ordinary until you notice what they are really trying to say. Something huge is waiting for you, but it may arrive quietly enough that you almost overlook it. So when the moment comes, do not judge it by how small it appears. Listen to what is underneath it. And now you understand the part most people never see: your soulmate's choice may have happened long before their words catch up with it. Their heart may have already answered the question their mind kept debating. They chose the connection because it remained meaningful even through distance, silence, confusion, and time. But there is still one final piece missing. Choosing you internally is one thing, finding the courage to make that choice visible is another. That is where the next chapter becomes powerful. Because your soulmate may soon reach a point where keeping everything inside feels more difficult than finally being honest. They may have something they want you to know, something connected to the reason they never truly let go of the possibility of you. As this unfolds, clarity will come. You may soon discover that the decision was never the mystery. The real mystery was why they waited so long to show you. And when that answer finally surfaces, you may look back at everything differently. My beloved child, the moment you have been waiting for may not arrive with a dramatic announcement. It may begin with a single sentence that changes the entire meaning of everything that came before. Stay with me for a moment, because your soulmate may have reached the point where keeping their feelings hidden no longer feels right. They have already spent enough time thinking, remembering, comparing, and questioning. Somewhere along that journey, their heart became certain about something their mind kept delaying. You were never just another person they met. You became the person they measured other connections against. And now they may be preparing to show you what they have been unable to explain. This may resonate as we continue, especially if you have felt that strange sense that something between you was unfinished. Perhaps you could never understand why the connection remained in your thoughts even after everything became quiet. Perhaps you tried to convince yourself that it was simply a memory. But what if the reason it remained was because the story had not reached its final chapter? There is something else you should know. Your soulmate may have realized that choosing you also means choosing honesty. They may understand that they cannot return to the same pattern of hesitation and expect a different result. If they come forward, they may want you to see a version of them that is more open than before. They may finally explain the things that once confused you, the distance, the silence, the mixed signals, and the moments when they seem to disappear emotionally. And the surprising part may be that the reason was not a lack of feeling. It may have been the opposite. They cared enough to become overwhelmed by what the connection meant. Sometimes people step back from something meaningful because they do not know how to handle the depth of it. But eventually, clarity catches up with them. Your soulmate may now be realizing that waiting for the perfect moment only creates more distance. Something huge is waiting for you, and it may begin with them finally saying what they should have said much earlier. If this message has kept you here, share it with someone who might need this reminder, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Because the most important part of this story is not simply that your soulmate chose you, it is what their choice means for the future of this connection. They may be preparing to make one small but meaningful move that tells you everything without needing a long explanation. Watch for consistency rather than promises. Watch for genuine effort rather than dramatic words. Watch for the moment when their actions finally begin matching what their heart has already decided. That is when you will know the difference between a passing emotion and a real decision. And if you have been wondering whether you imagine the connection, remember this: you do not need to force an answer. Let the truth reveal itself through what happens next. So here is the final realization. Your soulmate may have chosen you, but you were never supposed to spend your life waiting helplessly for that choice to become visible. Your part is to remain open to clarity while continuing to value yourself. If the connection is meant to move forward, it should come with mutual effort, respect, honesty, and peace. The next chapter should not require you to chase someone or prove your worth. It should feel like two people finally understanding what they could not understand before. And when that moment comes, you may realize why everything took so long. The delays were not necessarily the end, they were part of the process that brought both of you toward greater clarity. As this unfolds, clarity will come. The person you thought had forgotten you may reveal that they remembered far more than you knew. The person you thought had moved on may reveal that they were still carrying the connection. And the choice you thought you were waiting for may have already been made quietly in their heart. You just didn't know it yet.